Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mastering English Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sam.
Yeah. Today, we are diving deep into a topic that is, well, it's truly transformational.
It's not just about improving your vocabulary or your grammar. It's more like unlocking the operating manual for personal change.
Yes, which, of course, drastically accelerates your English learning journey.
For sure.
I had this moment recently, and maybe you, the listener, have too.
Uh,
You look at someone who has achieved this massive transformation. They went from struggling with a skill, maybe feeling completely stuck in their career, or even feeling overwhelmed by English.
right, and then suddenly they're succeeding.
Suddenly, it seems almost effortlessly, they've turned their lives around.
Yeah.
And you just think, why them? How did they do that?
It's the ultimate riddle, isn't it? When we see success, we tend to focus on the spectacular outcome.
Yeah, the end result.
Exactly. The fluent conversation, the big promotion, whatever it is. And we look at that final product and we wonder, are they just lucky? Do they have some, innate talent that I'm missing? Or are they doing something fundamentally different that we just can't see?
Exactly. And I connect this right back to my own journey with English.
Me too.
When I first started, the language felt like this impossible, huge thing.
Oh, totally. A giant mountain to climb.
It was so overwhelming. I mean, so many words, irregular verbs fighting you at every turn, grammar rules that just made no sense. It really felt like trying to climb a sheer, slippery cliff face.
It's that feeling of absolute cognitive overload. You think, how can I possibly absorb all of this?
Right. But then the change started, and it wasn't a sudden burst of brilliance or anything.
Yeah, it never is.
It was microscopic. One small rule just, clicked, then another. I learned one new word, and then suddenly my ear was tuned to hear it everywhere. And that initial feeling of impossibility, it slowly, almost without me noticing, just faded into, okay, I can actually do this. And that realization changed everything for me.
That pivot point from impossibility to capability, that is the key we are unlocking today. Yes.
When I was learning, I had that classic belief, if I just study for 12 hours straight this weekend, I will be fluent.
Oh, the heroic effort. I've tried that.
I tried that, I failed, I burned out, and I just felt worse than when I started. And I realized pretty quickly that fluency wasn't about heroic efforts or collecting a huge stack of flashcards.
So what was it about?
It was about building small, consistent habits, changing my mindset about mistakes, and this is the most important part, intentionally using what I learned every single day.
And that right there is the core insight of today's deep dive. Life-altering transformations, they don't happen overnight. It's not about one huge decision that changes everything instantly.
Right.
It's truly about the small, almost invisible changes we make every single day. We're calling this mastering transformational change through the lens of the 1% rule.
So our mission today is to unpack the science and the secrets behind this concept. We're going to look at why people get stuck, those hidden barriers that stop most change efforts. And then we'll give you the practical steps, the technical mechanics of the 1% rule.
Exactly. And the mindset shifts that successful people use to create that lasting exponential change, whether that's in learning English, improving their fitness, or, well, achieving any big goal.
We have some really dense, fascinating source material here that walks us through it all. Practical steps, mindset shifts, even some of the neurological science of focus.
And how to adjust your environment for success. It really is a complete roadmap.
It is. Okay, so before we jump into the details of the strategy, we had two quick things to ask you, the listener. If you are finding value in this deep dive, which we really hope you are, please take a moment right now to subscribe to the Mastering English podcast.
And hitting that like button for this episode genuinely helps us reach more learners just like you.
Yes, please help us build this community.
Okay.
Let's unpack this journey toward mastery.
Let's do it.
So I want to start with that tough foundational question. We all want to change. We want that fresh start. We buy the books, we sign up for the gym, we download the language apps. But statistically, most people abandon their goals within just the first few weeks. What is going on there psychologically?
It's that gap between what we intend to do and what we actually do.
Right.
The initial excitement is all powered by emotion, but when that emotion fades, we crash right back into our old patterns unless we have some kind of system in place.
A system, not just a feeling.
Exactly. And our sources really emphasize this point. Recognizing the barriers is the crucial first step. If you don't know what psychological forces are blocking you, you can't build a strategy to break them down.
Okay, so let's break down the common culprits. The first and maybe the most um, debilitating barrier is the fear of failure.
That fear it's ancient. It's rooted in risk aversion. It's that internal voice whispering,
What if I try?
yeah, what if I put myself out there? What if I try to start this new, scary English study routine or try speaking more and I fail miserably in front of someone? That fear of embarrassment, of judgment, is often so much stronger than the desire for success.
So it keeps us in our comfort zone. We just avoid the action to avoid the potential pain of failing.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Successful people don't see failure as a personal statement about their worth.
Okay, so how do they see it?
They see failure as data, as information. Think of it like this. If you try to use a new English idiom and it comes out wrong, that's not a failure.
It's just feedback.
It's just feedback telling you, okay, try this sentence structure instead. The necessary perspective shift is realizing that every single person who has achieved anything significant has failed, often spectacularly along the way.
But the difference is they kept going.
They kept going. They saw the failure as an instruction manual.
That's a huge reframe. Failure is just information.
Okay.
The second major barrier we run into is what we call a lack of direction, or as I like to call it, the perfect plan trap.
This is classic analysis paralysis. People know they want a better life, or they want, say, C2 fluency in English, but the journey just seems so long and so complex.
They get paralyzed by the size of the task.
Totally. They fall into the trap of believing they need a detailed, perfect 100-page plan, complete with color-coded schedules and every resource cataloged, before they can take any action at all.
Oh, I see this constantly with English learners. They spend a month researching the perfect textbook, the perfect app, the perfect tutor.
Instead of just learning something.
Instead of spending 5 minutes actually learning a new phrase, they're optimizing a plan that doesn't even exist yet.
And since the perfect plan is a myth, it doesn't exist in reality, they just wait.
Right.
And that planning stage becomes a really effective form of procrastination. The delay kills all their momentum, and when they finally do start, they've often already burned out just from the planning.
So the counter strategy here, which I know we'll get into, is just to start small.
The minimum viable start, just the smallest possible action.
And while they're stuck in that planning phase, the third barrier is quietly eroding their foundation, and that's negative self-talk, the internal saboteur.
This is maybe the most insidious barrier because it comes from inside our own heads. It's that voice that says, I'll never be good at this. Or, specifically for language learners, I'm just not a language person. Or my brain is too old. Or I don't have the talent.
Those cognitive distortions are so damaging because they stop progress before it even begins.
Absolutely. If you tell yourself you are not capable, your brain, being an efficient machine, just accepts it as a fact.
It believes you.
It stops looking for evidence of your progress and focuses only on evidence of impossibility. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it pre-sabotages the entire mission. We were literally training our brains to believe we are incapable.
Wow. Which leads us to the final barrier, and the source material calls this one of the biggest traps. It's waiting for motivation.
Yeah.
This is when people say, I'll start my new practice routine when I feel ready, or I'll start that challenging project once I'm motivated.
And this is a secret that really separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Motivation comes after action, not before it.
Say that again.
Motivation comes after action, not before. We have a fundamental misunderstanding of the relationship between action and feeling.
We think we have to wait for the feeling.
We think motivation is a feeling we have to wait for, like catching the right wave, but it's actually a direct biological result of doing something.
That is a critical reversal of what we're usually taught. Can you elaborate on the mechanism there? Why does action generate motivation?
Well, think about the chemical reward loop in your brain. When you perform a small, positive action, even just putting on your running shoes or opening your English notebook,
The smallest thing.
your brain registers a tiny victory. This releases a little bit of dopamine, the neurochemical for pleasure and reward, and that small hit of dopamine encourages you to take the next slightly larger step.
So the feeling of motivation isn't the starting fuel. It's more like the exhaust from the last step that powers the next one.
Precisely. That was the whole point of the analogy in the source about waiting for the perfect moment. I kept waiting for this burst of energy and inspiration before I could begin my own personal challenge.
And it never came.
It never came while I was just thinking that the only thing that changed was when I just took the first imperfect step. I was unmotivated, I was tired, but I did the smallest thing possible.
And then suddenly, That mental block just dissolved.
It did. The act of starting generates momentum, and momentum produces the feeling of motivation you were waiting for in the first place.
Wow.
So understanding what's holding you back, especially that trap of waiting for readiness, is the first crucial step to mastering transformational change. We have to flip the script.
Action first, motivation second.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've identified the psychological forces we need to fight fear, over-planning, negative talk, and waiting for that magic spark of motivation. So now, how do we actually start moving forward? And more importantly, how do we sustain that movement? You mentioned that the real answer is in small daily improvements.
That's right. People look at the goal fluency, a new career, mastering a complex skill, and they see this huge, intimidating gap.
Mm.
Their instinct is to try to leap across that gap with one dramatic, massive effort. That's the heroic effort approach you mentioned.
Like studying for 6 hours a day for a week straight.
Which is completely impossible to maintain.
Yeah.
It just burns them out quickly, and that leads right back to the feeling of failure we just discussed. Real sustainable change happens gradually, like water carving a canyon. It's the consistent pressure, not the sudden flood, that causes the transformation.
And this brings us to the mathematical principle that is the centerpiece of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
The 1% rule.
The 1% rule is often underestimated because it just sounds so simple. It says, stop trying to improve by 50% overnight.
Just forget that.
Instead, focus on improving just 1% every single day. One tiny change, one small refinement.
Okay, but 1% doesn't sound very impressive at first. If I practice English 1% better today, how do I even measure that? Maybe I use one new word correctly, or I listened for one extra minute. What's the real payoff?
The payoff is found in the power of compounding. And this is where we really need to look at the math, because the statistic from the source is, well, it's truly mind-blowing.
Okay, hit me with it.
If you improve just 1% every day for an entire year, 365 days, you don't just improve by 365%, which would be linear growth.
Right, that's just adding it up.
Because those efforts compound on top of each other, you end up being approximately 37.78 times better than when you started.
Wait, 37 times better? Not 3.7, but 37.
Almost 38 times better. That number is just massive.
Wow. That is explosive growth hidden in these tiny daily actions.
Yeah.
How can we make sense of that exponential curve versus the linear one?
Well, let's use the formula. It's 1.01, which represents your 100% plus that 1% improvement raised to the power of 365 days. The results accelerate.
So at the beginning, it's slow.
On day 1, the progress is tiny. On day 30, it's still pretty small. But once you hit day 150, and definitely by day 300, the momentum you've built means the improvement on that single day is now way greater than the improvement on day 1.
Because you're building on a much larger, more effective foundation.
Exactly.
I get it. It's like interest on a bank account, but for your skills. You earn interest not just on your initial capital, your starting skill level, but on the accumulated interest, all the progress you've already made.
Right. The growth accelerates itself, and the contrast is terrifyingly important.
Okay.
If improving 1% daily makes you nearly 38 times better, getting just 1% worse every day has the opposite exponential effect.
Oh, wow.
If you take 0.99, which is a 1% decrease, and raise it to the power of 365, you end up almost at 0, specifically 0.03.
So choosing to do nothing or choosing to slightly go backward, it compounds just as powerfully in the wrong direction.
After a year of slight daily neglect, you are functionally back to 0. Or even worse, because you've lost the habit.
That's incredible. The difference between improving 1% and getting 1% worse is, what, almost an 80-fold difference over the course of a year?
That's the real leverage in this rule. It forces you to respect the small decision you make today.
This directly connects to James Clear's idea that our habits shape our identity, which I know we saw referenced a lot in the source material. It's not just about the outcome, it's about the process.
Right. Small changes may seem minor at first, like reading a single English page or listening to a 5-minute podcast clip, but consistently applying those small efforts, it starts to redefine who you are. The action proves the identity.
So you stop being someone who is trying to learn English.
And you become someone who reads and listens to English daily.
And when your actions prove your identity, that growth mindset just becomes automatic. So how do we make these 1% actions so easy that they are impossible to skip? This is where the practical mechanics come in.
Right. We have to introduce the concept of reducing friction. If you want to practice English more, you need to make the process as easy and obvious as you can.
If your flashcards are buried in a drawer in the basement, you're not going to use them. If they are sitting right next to your coffee mug in the morning, the friction is almost zero.
That's the make it easy principle. And what about habit stacking? That's a really powerful tool for consistency.
Habit stacking leverages behaviors you already have.
Yeah.
You identify a behavior you already do reliably, like making coffee, brushing your teeth, or eating lunch, and you stack your new, tiny 1% habit on top of it.
So the script is like, after I do this old habit, I will do this new habit.
Exactly. After I pour my coffee, I will listen to 1 minute of the Mastering English podcast.
That takes the decision out of it. It's not about motivation anymore. It's just a sequence.
Precisely. And let's expand on that inspiring anecdote we found in the sources about the person who became fluent just by listening to English podcasts every single day.
Their secret wasn't some complex plan. It was consistency powered by low friction. They made it a rule. Every commute, every dinner prep was dedicated to passive listening. They started with maybe 15 minutes, but because it was a stacked habit, it just compounded.
And I bet they also adopted the never miss twice rule.
For sure.
If you miss a day, that's okay, life happens, but you make sure you never miss 2 days in a row because that's when the habit chain breaks.
That's critical for sustainability. So the takeaway here is simple. If you're wondering where to start, stop looking for the grand, intimidating plan. Just pick one small habit today. 5 minutes of practice, 1 sentence spoken, 1 paragraph read, and improve that thing by 1%.
And trust the math. The small, consistent actions lead to those massive 37 times better results over time.
So we've thoroughly covered action, the mechanics of the 1% rule and habit formation. But success isn't just about what you do. It's about what you think. Our mindset is even more fundamental. How we think about change determines whether those 1% improvements stick or whether they just dissolve at the first sign of difficulty.
Absolutely. If your mental framework is fixed and fragile, the first mistake you hit will stop your 1% progress immediately. And this brings us back to that classic psychological distinction, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
The difference is truly profound, and it all begins with how you view ability. The fixed mindset believes abilities are static. I was born with this much talent, and I can't change it.
Right, I'm just not a language person.
Exactly. That person avoids challenges and gives up easily because they believe their current skill level is their permanent destiny. They see mistakes as proof that they are inadequate.
Whereas a growth mindset believes, I can improve through effort.
Right. They see their current skill level as just a starting point. They view challenges as opportunities to learn and effort as the direct path to mastery.
So a mistake isn't failure.
It's essential feedback required for the next step. It's a totally different way of existing in the world.
And to understand why this mindset shift is so powerful, we need to get a little technical and talk about a really fascinating part of our brain, the reticular activating system, or RAS.
The RAS deep dive. This is where the science gets tangible. The RAS is basically the master filter of your brain.
The filter.
It's a network of neurons in your brainstem, and its main job is to filter the millions of sensory inputs hitting you every second. It directs your conscious attention only to what it thinks is relevant or important for your current goals and survival.
Without it, we would just be completely overwhelmed by noise, colors, feelings, everything.
Exactly. Your brain is wired to focus on what you train it to notice. And the classic example you used earlier is so important here. You learn a new, difficult English word in class, and then suddenly you hear that word everywhere in movies, articles, conversations.
Right. Did the rest of the world suddenly change its vocabulary?
No. The word was always there. But before, your RAS filtered it out because it wasn't relevant.
Once I learned it and told my brain it was important.
Your brain flagged it, and now you perceive it constantly. It's like when you're thinking about buying a red car. Suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Okay, so what's the implication for transformational change and the 1% rule?
Well, if you engage in that negative self-talk, constantly repeating, I can't do this, or learning English is too hard, your RAS will filter reality to find evidence to prove that thought true.
Oh, wow.
It will focus intensely on every mistake you make, every time you don't understand, and it will filter out the small moments of progress.
And that just reinforces the fixed mindset. It's a downward spiral.
Conversely, if you consistently use positive self-talk and repeat, I am improving every day and I notice my progress, your brain starts focusing on evidence of your success.
So your RAS starts flagging every time you understood a new phrase or you used a new verb tense correctly.
Yes, and this focus fuels your motivation and reinforces the growth mindset, which in turn strengthens your 1% consistency.
It's not magic. It's neuroplasticity in action. Every time we choose to focus on progress, we are literally strengthening the neural pathways for that focus. We're rewiring our own brains.
That's the deeper layer. Consistent 1% actions paired with positive mindset focus physically alter the structure of your brain, making the actions easier over time. The habit becomes part of your neurology.
Okay, so how do we actively reprogram this filter? The sources suggested 3 powerful tools for this: affirmations, visualization, and gratitude.
Starting with affirmations. And these aren't just wishes, they are precise, positive statements repeated often, ideally in the present tense.
So instead of, I hope to speak English better someday,
You affirm, I am becoming a more confident and fluent English speaker every day. They have to be consistent and based on your identity.
so you're proactively taking control of that internal dialogue that the RAS uses as its guide.
Exactly. The second tool is visualization, or what some people call mental rehearsal. This means actively spending a few minutes seeing yourself succeeding.
Yeah.
If your goal is fluency, spend time every morning seeing yourself in a successful conversation, speaking smoothly, and understanding everything effortlessly.
This kind of tricks your brain, doesn't it? It activates the same neural networks that are used when you actually perform the action.
Precisely. Mental rehearsal creates preloaded motor programs and confidence pathways. When your brain sees that image repeatedly, it starts to see it as a future reality, not just a dream.
And the RAS starts looking for ways to make it happen.
And it reduces your anxiety when you face the real situation because your brain has already practiced it successfully.
And finally, gratitude practice. A lot of people dismiss this as being too soft, but it has immense psychological and even biological power.
It is profoundly powerful. By focusing daily on what is going well, what progress you are thankful for, what words you learned, what supportive people you have, you train your brain to exit its default state of seeking threats and problems.
It literally changes your chemistry.
Gratitude lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and it shifts your baseline mood, which allows your brain to see opportunities instead of obstacles.
If you were grateful for the 10 words you used this week, your brain focuses on that progress. But if you only focus on the 1,000 words you haven't learned yet, you just see paralyzing obstacles.
Exactly. Gratitude shifts the default setting of your mind from lack to abundance, which is the perfect fuel for sustained 1% growth.
Okay, so we've covered action and mindset. Now we need to tackle that one psychological barrier that just kills most change initiatives before they even start.
The waiting game.
Procrastination, fueled by the desire for the right moment.
This is the myth of readiness. So many people, especially high achievers who are used to performing well, believe that before they take action, they need to be completely prepared, completely motivated, and completely confident.
But here's the truth from the source materials stated so clearly. You will never feel fully ready.
That needs to be accepted as a core truth of being human. Life is ambiguous and complex. If we waited until we were 100% prepared, we would never start anything worthwhile.
And this leads us to that critical formula we touched on earlier, which really deserves to be repeated.
Progress comes before confidence.
Let's really hammer this point home because it's so counterintuitive. We're taught to be confident before we do something.
And that expectation cripples people. We wait for confidence to appear so we can act. But real lasting confidence is the result. It's the emotional byproduct of successful action.
So you act first, even imperfectly.
You act imperfectly, you make a tiny bit of progress. That small victory gives you a little boost of confidence, which then allows you to take the next slightly bigger and still imperfect action.
I lived this when I was learning to speak English.
Yeah.
I hesitated for maybe 6 months to even start speaking in public or even in a casual conversation.
Because in the fear of sounding stupid.
Totally. I kept asking myself, what if I use the wrong verb tense? What if I can't understand their rapid-fire answer? What if they laugh? And the more I waited for perfection, the harder it became to even open my mouth.
It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. The fear prevents the action, and the lack of action reinforces the feeling of inadequacy, which just fuels more fear.
I have a specific, slightly embarrassing story about this. My first real attempt at a conversation, I completely mixed up the past simple and the present perfect.
Oh, no.
I kept saying, I have went, instead of I went. And I did it about 10 times in a row. My brain just locked it. It was so mortifying in the moment. But when I finally took that terrifying first step, even with that massive error, I realized 2 things. First, the listener didn't really care. They were focused on understanding my meaning.
And the second thing?
Second, correcting that mistake afterward was the single most powerful learning experience I had that whole month.
That detail is so important. The mistake provided the emotional stickiness that made the correction unforgettable. You weren't perfect, but you were improving.
And that improvement, the progress, was the only confidence booster I needed. Which brings us directly to the principle that underlies this whole section.
Done is better than perfect.
That phrase needs to be your mantra, especially if you're pursuing the 1% rule. Too many ambitious people delay action because they want everything to be just right.
They want the perfect study environment, the perfect lighting, the perfect mental state before they start their 1% daily practice.
But in reality, imperfect action is always better than no action. Waiting for perfection means you never start, whether it's learning English, starting a project, or trying a new recipe.
And to make that imperfect start manageable, we can adopt the 2-minute rule.
Okay, what's that?
If starting a task takes more than 2 minutes of effort, you are making the first step too big. If your goal is read English every day, the 2-minute version is open the English book.
If your goal is workout, the 2-minute version is put on your workout clothes.
Exactly. Just start the habit chain. That small step is immediately actionable, and it builds the momentum you need without requiring any initial motivation.
So the 5 minutes of English practice you do today, even if you're distracted and only get 0.5% better, is infinitely more valuable than the 2 hours of perfect studying you plan to do next week that never happens.
So we want to issue the immediate action challenge right now, just as suggested by our source material. Think of one small thing you've been postponing. Something related to your growth, maybe practicing speaking English, starting a small workout, or organizing your study space.
Whatever it is, the challenge is simple. Just take one small, imperfect step today.
Not tomorrow, not next week, today.
Because action, however small or flawed, leads to momentum.
And momentum leads directly to the massive self-sustaining confidence you need for long-term transformation.
But that momentum, it can be easily derailed if we ignore the forces outside of us.
True.
We've talked about what we do internally, our actions and our mindset, but now we need to look externally at our surroundings.
This is a factor so many people overlook, but it's crucial. Our environment shapes our habits, our decisions, and even our thoughts far more than we realize.
It's not just about what we do.
It's about who and what we surround ourselves with every day.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
people you spend time with, the books you read, the content you consume online, even the lighting in your room. All of it plays a huge subconscious role in your potential for growth.
And we have to introduce the famous saying here, often attributed to the speaker, Jim Rohn. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That always makes me stop and really think. If you're constantly surrounded by negative, critical people, people who complain that English is impossible, or who always settle for less, it is so hard to maintain a growth mindset yourself.
Their negativity acts like sand in the gears of your 1% machine.
Yeah.
Their energy and their limiting beliefs, they create this strong downward pressure on you, pulling you back toward the average.
But the beautiful opposite is also true.
Right. If you are around positive, ambitious, goal-driven individuals, people who are excited about learning and growing, their energy and habits will naturally rub off on you.
You'll just raise your standards by being in their environment.
So the goal isn't just to work on ourselves, it's to strategically curate our environment to support that 1% daily growth. So what are the practical, actionable strategies for this?
Okay, the sources outline 3 key strategies. Strategy number 1 is to follow inspirational people and ideas.
This has never been easier than it is today with the internet. We can choose our mentors and role models from all over the world.
So intentionally expose yourself to positive influences, whether that's authors, speakers, or specific social media accounts that focus on deep learning and self-improvement, not just entertainment.
And by intentionally consuming content that aligns with the growth mindset we discussed, you are subtly programming your reticular activating system. You are replacing negative noise with useful information and motivation.
It's a 1% adjustment to your information diet that compounds your worldview. Okay, strategy number 2, and this is absolutely vital for English learners. Join learning communities and accountability groups.
This is so critical. We know many people study English alone, which makes the journey isolating and really hard to sustain. But there are countless communities out there.
Online forums, local language groups.
Or even communities like the one for this deep dive. When you are part of a community that values growth, where people share struggles, offer feedback, and celebrate small wins, it provides immediate social support and accountability.
It turns a solitary struggle into a shared journey.
For sure.
Having people to practice with, share resources with, and help you overcome a difficult grammar point, it makes all the difference, especially when your motivation dips.
I can speak to this personally with a bit more detail. For a while, I felt really stuck in an intermediate rut in my English learning. I knew I needed to speak more, but I just didn't have the confidence.
Hmm.
It wasn't until I joined a vibrant weekly online conversation group that things changed rapidly. Suddenly, I wasn't just studying for myself.
You were studying for the group.
I was studying because I knew I had an obligation to the group to participate. Having that social pressure and the immediate feedback loop, people cheering me on when I used a complex phrase, it made all the difference in keeping my 1% efforts consistent.
That's a powerful example. Social commitment creates momentum. Okay. And finally, strategy number 3 is often the most challenging, but just as important. Reduce exposure to negativity.
This involves setting clear, sometimes difficult, boundaries. It means actively limiting the time you spend with people who constantly complain, who are cynical about your goals, or who try to pull you down.
If someone always tells you English is too hard, you'll never make it, you have to minimize that influence.
And it also extends to our digital input. We need to cut down on negative news cycles and social media feeds that just drain your energy, promote fear, or foster a cynical, fixed mindset worldview.
Your attention is your most valuable resource, and it's a zero-sum game.
Right. If you constantly feed your brain negativity, you are training your RAS to see the world as dangerous and difficult, which just crushes the growth mindset.
So we want to leave you with a key reflection point from the source material.
Mm-hmm.
Are the 5 people you spend the most time with helping you grow, or are they holding you back? Be honest with yourself. If they aren't pushing you toward that 1% growth every day, it might be time to make some small strategic adjustments.
Surround yourself with people and influences that truly inspire and uplift you.
We've spent this entire deep dive discussing these high-level conceptual tools, the 1% rule, the RAS, mindset. But for our audience, the English learners, there's a vital final piece that connects everything.
And then that's the language itself.
That's right. As you go on this journey of personal change, you encounter these new concepts. You need the vocabulary not just to understand transformation, but to internalize it and articulate your own growth strategy.
Yeah. Learning new words and phrases helps us articulate our new goals and our new mindset even better. Language is a tool for thought, and better tools lead to better outcomes.
Okay, so let's start with a word that really summarizes section 2.
Compounding.
Compounding, C-O-M-P-O-U-N-D-I-N-G. In finance, it means earning interest on your interest. In personal growth, it means the cumulative effect of small, consistent actions that leads to those exponential results.
So an example could be, I'm not worried about my English progress today because I trust in the compounding effect of daily practice.
Perfect. The second word is crucial for overcoming setbacks. Resilience. Resilience. R-E-S-I-L-I-E-N-C-E. This is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It replaces the idea of never fail with bouncing back. It's the definition of the growth mindset.
And you could use it by saying, I made several mistakes speaking today, but my resilience allowed me to focus on the feedback instead of quitting.
Love that. It lets you positively identify as a learner who persists. Okay, next, to counter the perfect plan trap, we need the word incremental.
Incremental, I-N-C-R-E-M-E-N-T-A-L. This means increasing or adding on, especially in a series of small, regular steps. It's the direct opposite of the heroic effort. It's the vocabulary of the 1% rule.
So an example sentence. We are not looking for revolutionary changes. We are focused on incremental improvements in our vocabulary every week.
The fourth word helps us define that core required action.
Discipline.
Discipline, D-I-S-C-I-P-L-I-N-E. In the context of growth, it means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's action before motivation. Right. I didn't feel motivated to study, but I relied on my discipline to complete the 2-minute rule and start my practice session. It shifts the credit from luck or feeling to deliberate habit.
And finally, a word that captures the strategic power of the 1% rule and your environment. Leverage.
Leverage, L-E-V-E-R-A-G-E. Originally a mechanical term, in strategy, it means using a small amount of force to gain a massive advantage. The 1% rule is the ultimate act of leverage.
Usage example. I leveraged my existing morning routine by stacking my English practice onto making coffee, which gave me maximum results for minimal effort.
By learning and using these 5 high-value conceptual words, compounding, resilience, incremental, discipline, and leverage, you are not just learning vocabulary, you are empowering your ability to think strategically about your life.
So if we had to leave our listeners with one final essential takeaway from today's extensive deep dive, what is the unifying principle?
I'd say it's this powerful realization that you truly have more control over your life and your path, especially your English learning path, than you currently think.
Right. The difference between feeling stuck and feeling successful is just a few small, consistent decisions repeated over time.
That is spot on. The transformation isn't reliant on luck or heroic efforts or huge overnight leaps.
No.
It's achieved through three things working together: small, consistent actions, that's the 1% rule, cultivating the right mental environment, the growth mindset, and intentionally building a strong, supportive physical and social environment.
And remember the final encouragement.
Yeah.
Progress doesn't happen in a straight line. You will have days when you only achieve 0.5% progress, or maybe even you go backwards by 1%.
And that's okay.
That's okay. The key to resilience is not perfection, it's consistency. Every small step of discipline, every act of imperfect action gets you closer to fluency.
Now, let's revisit that micro challenge, but with a new twist. We want you to stop procrastinating and focus on momentum over perfection. Think of one thing related to your growth that you've been putting off.
And now, instead of just doing it, frame that action using one of the high-value words we just discussed. Say to yourself, I am going to leverage the 2-minute rule and practice my new vocabulary for 120 seconds.
Or, I will exercise my discipline and read one paragraph of English before I check my email. Pick one small thing, make it a 2-minute task, and just take that first imperfect step today.
Done is always better than perfect. Start your 1% improvement now. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to the Mastering English podcast for more episodes that help you learn English and improve your life at the same time.
We hope these insights help you unlock your next level of growth.
I'm Alex. See you next time.
And I'm Sam. Bye.